Your mind is racing after another overwhelming day. You replay a difficult conversation, worry about a looming deadline, and feel a constant hum of distraction. This mental noise is not just frustrating, it clouds your judgment and drains your sense of calm. The ancient Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that our life is what our thoughts make it. What if you could train your mind to cut through that inner clutter? Stoic cognitive discipline offers exactly that, a practical toolkit to refine your perspective and achieve lasting mental clarity. This is a journey into the core principles that empower you to master your inner world. You will discover how a philosophy from 2,000 years ago provides a powerful system for clear thinking and resilient peace. How many of your daily struggles are actually shaped by your own perceptions? Our reality is not built by events, but by the judgments we place upon them. This is the foundational insight of Stoic cognitive discipline. The ancient Stoics drew a crucial distinction between what is within our complete control and what is not. Your physical self, your standing among others, your material circumstances, these are ultimately not entirely up to you, but your judgments, your opinions, and your interpretations are your sovereign territory. The philosopher Epictetus, a former slave who gained profound wisdom, stated it plainly: we are disturbed not by things, but by the views which we take of them. This is the heart of the matter. Your internal narrative about an event holds far more power than the event itself. Consider two people stuck in the exact same traffic jam. One person fumes, clenches the steering wheel, and fills with frustration, seeing the delay as a personal offense that ruins their entire morning. The other person accepts the situation as beyond their control. They use the time to listen to an audiobook or simply observe their surroundings without adding a layer of mental distress. The external circumstance is identical. The only difference is the judgment each person applied to it. That judgment is the lever controlling their entire experience. Think of a recent moment that caused you frustration. Was it the situation itself, or was it your interpretation of what it meant that truly caused the distress? Recognizing this is the first and most vital step toward mental clarity. What if you could pause before believing every negative thought that enters your mind? This is the essence of the Stoic discipline of assent, a powerful practice for guarding your inner peace. Assent is that moment of choice, the split second where you either approve an initial impression or you choose to question it. It is the critical gap between an impulse and your full reaction. Think of your mind as a quiet courtroom. Every thought that enters is like a piece of evidence presented to you. The discipline of assent is your authority to examine that evidence carefully before you admit it as truth. You are the judge, not a passive bystander. The Stoic teacher Epictetus offered a clear guideline. Do not be carried away by the vividness of an impression, but say, wait for me a little. Let me see who you are and what you are about. Let me put you to the test. This is the practice of creating space. An impression arrives, perhaps a feeling of unease after a critical comment. Your initial, raw impression might suggest they think I am not capable. The discipline of assent is your tool to stop and question that story. Is this thought absolutely true? What other ways of seeing this are possible? Maybe the person was having a difficult day, or perhaps their feedback, though poorly delivered, contains a small piece of useful truth. By withholding your immediate agreement, you prevent a single thought from spiraling into a storm of self-doubt and emotional confusion. Consider the practical example of receiving difficult feedback at work. The initial impression arrives with force, carrying feelings of uncertainty and frustration. Without this practice, you might instantly agree, believing the thought that you have fallen short, which then colors your entire day and shakes your confidence. But with practiced assent, you create that vital pause. You observe the thought without becoming one with it. You can acknowledge the feedback without automatically accepting the most painful meaning of it. This does not mean ignoring what is said, but rather evaluating it with clarity instead of reacting from a place of raw emotion. Take a moment and bring to mind a recurring uneasy thought you often have. It might be a concern about your abilities or a worry about what others think. Now, imagine applying this pause. Imagine holding that thought at a gentle distance and simply watching it without immediately giving it your stamp of approval. How does that small space change your relationship to that thought? This is not about pushing feelings away, but about discerning what is true from a misleading first appearance. It is how you build a mind that is not easily unsettled, a judgment that remains clear even when the initial impressions are loud. Stoic clarity emerges when we place our attention on our own actions rather than the final results. This is the profound practice of detaching your sense of worth and contentment from outcomes you cannot command. The Roman philosopher Seneca captured this freedom perfectly. A man is relieved and freed by caring not for what is in the power of others, he wrote. If you would have your desires never disappointed, desire that which is not in the power of others. To want nothing from fortune is to fear nothing from her. This is the core of cognitive detachment. It is not about ceasing to care or becoming passive. It is about redirecting your primary investment from the unpredictable external event to the one thing you can truly govern, your own effort and intention. When you tie your inner peace to a promotion, a specific person's approval, or a particular score in a game, you hand over the keys to your mental state to forces beyond your command. This creates a constant undercurrent of anxiety because you are trying to control the uncontrollable. Detaching from the outcome frees up immense mental energy that was previously spent on worry and mental rehearsal of potential failures. That energy can then be focused on what you can actually do, which is to act with excellence in the present moment. Think about preparing for a job interview. The outcome, whether you receive an offer, depends on a dozen factors outside your control. The other candidates, the company's internal budget, the specific preferences of the interviewers. If you are cognitively attached to getting the job, your entire preparation becomes laced with tension. Your mind races with what-if scenarios, your self-worth becomes entangled with the final decision, and the interview itself becomes a high-stakes performance filled with pressure. Now apply the Stoic shift. Your only true domain is your preparation. You can research the company thoroughly. You can practice articulating your skills clearly. You can choose to be punctual and present. You focus all your effort on performing these actions to the best of your ability. The result, the offer or the rejection, is a separate matter. It is information, not a verdict on your value. This detachment allows you to walk into that room with a calm confidence because you have already succeeded in your own eyes by fulfilling your part with integrity. Your judgment remains clear because it is not clouded by the desperate need for a specific yes. Is there an area in your own life where you feel overly attached to a particular outcome, perhaps in a relationship, a creative project, or a financial goal? Notice how that attachment feels in your body and mind, a subtle clenching, a background hum of unease. Now, consider what would shift if you consciously redirected your focus entirely to the quality of your own actions, to the process itself. This mental move does not guarantee the outer result you want, but it does guarantee something far more valuable, your inner stability and the clarity to navigate whatever comes next. Your daily worries exist within a much grander landscape. The Stoics developed a powerful mental exercise called the view from above, a practice designed to instantly recalibrate your sense of scale. It is a conscious act of zooming out, both physically and across time, to see your life from a wider lens. When you feel tangled in a problem, this technique helps shrink the issue down to its true proportion, clearing away the mental fog of immediacy. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius regularly practiced this, reminding himself to frequently consider the connection of all things in the universe. "Look at the stars as if you were running alongside them," he wrote, "and thoughts of the earthly become mere specks." This is not about dismissing your concerns, but about placing them within the vast theater of existence. Your current conflict, your pressing anxiety, is one small scene in a much longer story. Imagine looking down at your city from a high altitude. The buildings become tiny models, the cars silent specks moving along lines. The very street where you felt that rush of emotion or that knot of worry is now just one thin gray thread in a sprawling tapestry. From this vantage point, the intensity of that single moment softens. It is absorbed into the immense, quiet order of the whole. Now, bring this down to a practical level. Consider a heated disagreement with a colleague that feels all-consuming in the moment. It occupies your thoughts for hours, replaying the words and stirring frustration. Now apply the view from above. See this single event not as the center of your universe, but as one brief interaction in the span of your multi-decade career and your entire life. That person and you are two small figures on a vast planet, both navigating your own complex journeys. This perspective does not make the issue irrelevant, but it strips it of its false magnitude. It allows you to address the situation from a place of calm reason rather than reactive emotion. The next time a problem threatens to overwhelm you, pause for just 30 seconds. Close your eyes and mentally pull the camera back. See your room, your street, your city, the continent, the planet hanging in the quiet expanse of space. From there, look back at your worry. How much space does it truly occupy in this infinite view? This simple shift can ease the tension from a situation, granting you the mental clarity to respond with wisdom, not just react with noise. Resistance to reality creates a constant friction in the mind. We often believe our peace depends on changing what is happening, but a deeper clarity emerges when we stop fighting the current of events. This is the heart of the Stoic principle known as Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. It is the conscious choice to embrace everything that happens, not with passive resignation, but with an active welcome. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." This is the transformative power of Amor Fati. It is about using every single circumstance, especially the difficult and unexpected ones, as fuel for your own growth and clarity. When you resist what is already true, you create an inner conflict that clouds your judgment. Your mental energy is diverted into complaining, wishing things were different, and replaying a version of events that no longer exists. Acceptance, in the Stoic sense, is not about approval or defeat. It is the simple, powerful act of acknowledging what is now fact. Once you fully accept the reality of a situation, your mind is freed to engage with it clearly. The energy previously spent on resistance becomes available for constructive action and clear thinking. Consider the example of a missed flight. The event itself is a fact, the gate is closed, the plane is gone. The typical reaction might be a storm of frustration, anger at the traffic, blame towards others, a spiral of anxiety about the consequences. This mental noise makes it nearly impossible to think straight. Now apply Amor Fati. You look at the closed gate and you consciously accept it. This is my situation now. You internally welcome this new reality as the starting point for what comes next. Instantly, the mental noise begins to settle. With a clearer mind, you can now walk to the service desk and calmly explore your options. Rebook a flight, perhaps discover an unexpected opportunity in the delay you would have otherwise missed. The problem did not disappear, but your relationship to it transformed. You moved from being a victim of circumstance to being the active author of your response. This love of fate is the ultimate refinement of personal judgment. It ensures that your decisions are made from a place of present-moment awareness, not from the turbulent emotions of resistance. Is there one small situation in your life right now that you have been fighting? A minor inconvenience, a change of plans, a piece of critical feedback? For just a moment, experiment with Amor Fati. See if you can consciously lower your resistance and accept it fully, not as a failure, but as your new starting line. Notice the quieting of the mind that follows and the space it creates for a wiser, more deliberate next step. What if worrying about the worst-case scenario could actually make you calmer? This seems like a contradiction, yet it is the exact aim of a powerful Stoic exercise known as Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of difficulties. This practice is not about cultivating a bleak outlook or expecting the worst to happen. Instead, it is a deliberate and strategic form of mental preparation designed to ease anxiety and strengthen your judgment. The Stoic philosopher Seneca advised his friend Lucilius to periodically practice living with less. Take a certain number of days, he wrote, during which you will be content with the simplest and most modest of food, and with plain clothing, and say to yourself, "Is this what I used to fear?" By mentally rehearsing potential changes, you gently drain them of their intimidating power. You are not inviting misfortune. You are building an inner resilience that remains steady through life's inevitable shifts. The goal is to explore the idea of change in the safety of your own mind, so that if it ever arrives in reality, it finds you ready and adaptable, not caught off guard. Think of it as a fire drill for the soul. You do not conduct a fire drill because you expect the building to burn down, but so you are calm and know exactly what to do if the alarm ever sounds. This mental rehearsal transforms the unknown into the familiar, and the familiar is far less frightening. For a practical application, consider a project you have invested in deeply, perhaps a creative work you are about to share. The raw, unexamined worry might be a simple dread of things not going as hoped. Premeditatio Malorum asks you to go further. Close your eyes and vividly imagine the project not meeting its goals. See the quiet reception, hear the varied feedback. Now, crucially, do not stop there. The next step is to visualize your own thoughtful response. What is the very first thing you would do? You would take a breath. You would gather the information, separating useful insight from mere noise. You would then begin to plan your next steps, perhaps a revised approach or a new project altogether. By walking through this sequence in your mind, you accomplish two things. You realize that you would, in fact, move forward and even learn from the experience, and you equip yourself with a pre-considered plan of action. The event loses its status as a catastrophic endpoint and becomes instead a manageable, though difficult, turning point in your journey. Take a moment and bring to mind a minor concern that sometimes surfaces for you, perhaps about a professional shift or a social situation. Now, for just 30 seconds, gently premeditate it. Do not just worry about it, but mentally walk through the scenario and see yourself handling it with calm and resourcefulness. Notice how this small act of mental preparation changes the feeling of the concern itself, often shrinking it from a looming obstacle to a simple challenge you are already equipped to face. Our harshest judgments of others often cause more inner distress than the actions we are judging. When someone cuts you off in traffic or a coworker makes a dismissive remark, the initial sting is usually brief. The real turmoil begins when your mind constructs a story around their character, labeling them as intentionally rude or disrespectful. This narrative and your emotional reaction to it is a choice. The Stoic practice of suspending judgment is not about excusing poor behavior, but about protecting your own mental clarity from unnecessary storms. It is a conscious pause that conserves your most precious resource, your focused attention. Marcus Aurelius offered a profound reflection for these moments. When you wake up in the morning, he wrote, "Tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil." This is not a cynical view of humanity, but a realistic reminder of the natural lack of awareness that leads people to act as they do. Expecting everyone to be perfectly virtuous is like expecting a lion not to hunt. It is a refusal to argue with reality, and it spares you the shock and frustration of being constantly surprised when people act from their own limitations. Consider a colleague who makes a sharp, critical comment in a meeting. Your raw impression might instantly judge them as unkind or as someone who personally dislikes you. This judgment immediately triggers a defensive reaction and clouds your thinking. Now apply the Stoic pause. Instead of instantly assenting to that story, you withhold your verdict. You consider alternative explanations that do not require you to assume ill intent. Perhaps they are under immense pressure from their own manager and spoke from a place of stress. Maybe they are simply unaware of how their words land on others, a form of inattention rather than ill will. This shift does not mean you accept the unkind behavior, but it allows you to address the substantive issue of the comment itself without the distorting filter of personal offense. Your response can then be measured and effective, perhaps asking a clarifying question instead of launching a counterattack. You maintain your composure because your inner peace is no longer tied to their momentary lapse in judgment. Think of a recent instance where you formed a quick, strong judgment about someone. It could be a family member who was short with you or a stranger who was inconsiderate. Now, gently revisit that moment. Can you identify one alternative, more understanding explanation for their behavior that does not rely on them being a flawed person? How does exploring that possibility change the feeling of frustration you carried? This practice of judging less is ultimately a gift you give yourself, freeing up mental energy otherwise spent on irritation and allowing for a clearer, more compassionate perspective on the world. The most constant conversation you will ever have is the one inside your own mind. Its tone and content shape your entire reality, influencing every decision you make and coloring every experience. The Stoics understood that this internal dialogue is not a trivial background noise, but the very bedrock of our judgment. To refine your perspective, you must first become the attentive guardian of this inner voice. Epictetus, who focused intensely on mental training, offered a clear directive. You become what you give your attention to, he taught. This points to the transformative power of habitually directing your thoughts with purpose. The practice is not about suppressing thoughts, but about consciously guiding them away from unhelpful, harsh criticism and toward a dialogue that is both reasoned and compassionate. Consider the moment after a genuine mistake. The default, unexamined inner voice might immediately declare, "I failed." This is a final, heavy judgment that closes doors and breeds discouragement. The Stoic approach is to intercept that narrative and reframe it with gentle precision. The same event, viewed through a wiser inner dialogue, becomes, "I learned what does not work." This simple shift moves the experience from a verdict on your worth to a piece of useful data for your journey. It acknowledges the setback without letting it define you. Your inner critic focuses on blame, while your inner coach focuses on process and learning. For the next day, make it a quiet experiment to simply notice the tone of your own self-talk. Without judgment, just observe. When a plan goes awry, what is the first thing that inner voice says? Is it a voice of condemnation, or is it a voice of calm inquiry? This act of noticing is the first and most powerful step in reclaiming authorship of your mental world. You begin to see that you are not your thoughts, but the one who chooses which thoughts to nurture. When your highest goal is moral excellence, countless confusing choices suddenly resolve into clear paths. This is the power of the Stoic principle that virtue is the only true good. Everything else, from financial success to public reputation, is classified as a preferred or dispreferred indifferent, meaning it has no inherent power to make you a better or worse person. Your judgment becomes unshakable because it is anchored to something internal and completely within your control. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus stated it plainly: the good is an ability to deal with external circumstances in a way that is in harmony with our own nature. That ability is virtue. It is the skill of living well, and it is the only thing that is genuinely good because it can never be taken from you or used for ill. This idea acts as a master compass for your life. When faced with a dilemma, you no longer need to weigh a dozen conflicting variables. You simply ask one clarifying question: which course of action best expresses wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control? Consider a modern professional situation. You are presented with a tempting business shortcut that would boost your quarterly numbers significantly, but it involves withholding a small piece of negative information from a client. The conventional approach would weigh potential profit against the minor risk of being discovered. It is a messy equation of fear and desire. Now apply the Stoic virtue test. The question is no longer about profit or risk, but about justice. Is this deal fair and honest to the person on the other side? It is about courage. Do I have the strength to choose integrity over easy gain? And it is about wisdom. Does this action contribute to a lasting reputation built on trust? The path forward becomes unmistakably clear. The shortcut fails the virtue test, and so the decision is made. You might forego a temporary advantage, but you secure something far more valuable: your own moral integrity and the clarity of a conscience untroubled by compromise. This is how the sole good of virtue refines personal judgment. It cuts through the noise of external rewards and punishments, allowing you to see the one thing that truly matters: the quality of your own character. Bring to mind a decision you are weighing right now, large or small. Set aside all considerations of what you might gain or lose in terms of status, comfort, or possessions. Now ask yourself simply, which option makes me a more courageous, just, and wise person? The answer that emerges from that quiet space is the judgment refined by Stoic discipline. The past is a memory, and the future is an imagination. Your only true point of power is this single, fleeting moment. Stoic practice relentlessly trains the mind to anchor itself here, in the present, because it is the only arena where your judgment can be truly clear and your actions genuinely effective. A mind tangled in regrets about what cannot be changed or anxieties about what may never happen is like a ship trying to sail in two different seas at once, going nowhere but generating immense internal noise. Seneca observed this with piercing clarity, writing, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we experience more in imagination than in reality. Our difficulty is amplified not by the events of the present, but by the echoes of the past and the shadows of the future that we invite into our mind." The practice of present moment awareness is the act of gently closing that door, allowing the mental static to fade so you can hear your own reasoned thoughts again. Consider the simple, everyday act of drinking a cup of tea. Typically, you might be holding the warm mug while simultaneously scrolling through messages, your mind already racing ahead to your next meeting. You finish the tea without having truly tasted it, your body in one place and your attention scattered everywhere else. Now try it as a Stoic micro-practice. For just those few minutes, let the tea be your entire world. Feel the heat of the cup in your hands. Notice the steam rising. Inhale the aroma. When you take a sip, focus entirely on the flavor unfolding on your tongue. Each time your mind wanders to a concern or a memory, which it will, gently guide it back to the sensation of the tea. This is not a trivial exercise. It is a fundamental rehearsal for life. You are training your cognitive muscle to choose its focus, to reside in the one domain where you have any agency, the now. This singular focus cuts through the clutter of hypothetical problems and unchangeable history, restoring a quiet space where sound judgment can emerge. For the next 5 minutes, choose one simple activity. It could be washing your hands, feeling the water and the soap. It could be looking out a window, truly seeing the shapes of the trees or the movement of the clouds. Commit to being completely there. Do not just perform the action, but inhabit it fully. Notice what happens to the volume of your concerns when you stop feeding them with your attention. You may find that the present moment is not a place of scarcity, but of profound and immediate clarity. A simple, unadorned fact rarely carries the same weight as the story we wrap around it. Notice how often a neutral event arrives in your mind already packaged with a dramatic label. You do not just experience a quiet reception to your idea, you experience a humiliating rejection. Someone does not reply to your message, and the story becomes they are deliberately ignoring me. These narratives feel true, but they are interpretations, not facts. The Stoics developed a powerful mental tool to cut through this noise, a practice known as objective representation. It is the discipline of seeing things as they are, in their bare essence, before your judgments color them. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to strip away the legend that encrusts an object, to see the thing itself in its plain reality. He was practicing this very skill, breaking down situations to their fundamental components and refusing to be swayed by the added drama. This is not about becoming cold or unfeeling, but about creating a space between what happens and your reaction, so your judgment can operate with clarity. Consider the sting of a social moment that feels uncomfortable. The raw event is simple. A person you know walked past you at a gathering without speaking. The immediate, emotionally charged story might be, they deliberately avoided me because they do not like me. This interpretation ignites feelings of insecurity and frustration. Now apply objective representation. Strip away the legend and state only the observable facts. A person walked through a room and did not initiate a conversation. That is all. When you hold this bare fact in your mind, its emotional power diminishes significantly. You realize you have no access to their internal state. Perhaps they were distracted, in a hurry, or simply did not see you. The event itself is neutral. It is the story of intentional disregard that caused the discomfort. By refusing to assent to that initial, painful narrative, you protect your mental peace. Your judgment remains clear, allowing you to engage with that person later without the baggage of a manufactured grievance. Take a current, low-grade worry you have been carrying. Now find a quiet moment to write down a purely objective description of the situation. Use the plainest language possible, as if you were a camera recording only what can be seen and heard, with no adjectives that imply motive or finality. If your worry is about work, instead of writing "my boss is setting me up to fail," you would write, "my boss assigned a project with a tight deadline." Feel the difference in the mental weight of those two statements. One is a heavy, fearful prediction. The other is a simple circumstance to be managed. This act of writing forces your mind to differentiate between the event and the drama, granting you the perspective needed to respond not from a place of reaction, but from a place of thoughtful clarity. Could writing down your thoughts be the equivalent of decluttering your mind? The Stoics treated journaling not as a passive diary, but as an active, disciplined exercise for refining judgment. This nightly or morning practice was their dedicated space for mental organization, a structured way to examine the events of the day and the quality of their own responses. The most famous example of this is the personal writings of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a collection we now know as his Meditations. That profound work was never intended for publication. It was his private journal, a tool for self-guidance where he could untangle his thoughts and reinforce his principles. He was actively practicing cognitive discipline on the page, questioning his own automatic reactions and realigning his perspective with wisdom. One powerful way to begin this practice is with a simple, focused prompt. At the end of your day, ask yourself two questions. What is one thing I judged poorly today, and what would a wiser judgment have looked like? This is not about self-criticism, but about gentle, honest inquiry. Perhaps you judged a friend's late arrival as a sign of disrespect, when a wiser view might have considered they were simply overwhelmed. Maybe you judged a work setback as a difficult moment, when a calmer perspective would see it as a temporary obstacle rich with learning. By writing this down, you externalize the mental noise. You take a swirling, subjective feeling and turn it into a concrete sentence you can observe and learn from. The act of writing forces a clarity that thinking alone often lacks. For just one evening, try a single sentence experiment. Before you rest, write one line that reflects on a single judgment you made. It could be as simple as "I judge the traffic as a personal offense," but a wiser view would have been to accept it and use the time. This small act begins the process of training your mind to spot its own patterns, creating a quiet space for self-awareness and clearer judgment to grow. Anger and envy can feel like unstoppable forces crashing over you, but Stoicism reveals a quiet secret. These powerful emotions are not inevitable reactions. They are the direct result of a specific choice, the choice to agree with a misleading first impression. The Stoics called these overwhelming storms passions, and they saw them as correctable errors in judgment, not as unchangeable parts of your character. When you feel a surge of frustration or a pang of comparison, it is because your mind has accepted a story that something deeply upsetting or profoundly unfair is happening right now. Your reason has the capacity to step in and question that story before it consumes you. Seneca, in his powerful writing on anger, described this emotion as being its own worst punishment, stating that no challenge has cost the human spirit more. He observed that anger is a brief loss of clarity, a fire that burns the one who holds it first and foremost. The goal is not to become emotionless, but to achieve a state where your feelings are proportional and informed by reality, not by a distorted narrative. Consider the slow burn of road frustration. Another driver makes an abrupt move. The raw, initial impression screams, "That person is careless and they have personally disrespected me." If you assent to that impression without a second thought, the passion of anger ignites. Your heart pounds, your grip tightens on the wheel, and your entire system is flooded with a desire to react. Now witness the Stoic reappraisal. You create that crucial pause. You examine the impression. Is it absolutely true that they intended a personal insult? Almost certainly not. The more likely, rational story is one of human fallibility, a moment of distraction, a simple mistake anyone could make. This reappraisal does not excuse the unsafe action, but it completely diffuses the personal offense you felt. The event shifts from a deliberate attack to a neutral circumstance of error on the road. Your emotional response can then shift from a raging fire to a calm, focused attention on driving safely. What is one passion you frequently experience, perhaps a flash of envy when a peer succeeds or a deep current of worry about an upcoming event. Gently ask yourself, what is the underlying judgment fueling this feeling? What story have I accepted as absolute truth that is causing this distress? Is the story itself entirely reliable, or are there other, more measured ways to view the situation? By identifying the judgment, you hold the key to unlocking the emotion itself. Are your actions reactive impulses or chosen responses aligned with your principles? This question lies at the very heart of the Stoic discipline of action. Clear thinking is not meant to be a solitary exercise. It is the essential preparation for virtuous and effective movement in the world. When your judgment is refined, your actions naturally follow suit, becoming deliberate expressions of your character rather than chaotic reactions to external events. The Stoics envisioned a life where every act, no matter how small, is performed with purpose and for the common benefit. Marcus Aurelius offered a beautifully simple directive for this practice, writing, "Let your one delight and refreshment be to pass from one service to the community to another, with remembrance of the divine." This is the seamless connection between inner clarity and outer conduct. Your private mental discipline finds its ultimate expression in how you interact with others and contribute to the world around you. Consider a common moment of provocation when someone speaks to you with sharp criticism. The impulsive, untrained reaction is to meet their energy with your own, to respond with equal anger or defensiveness. This reaction feels justified in the moment, but it rarely improves the situation and often escalates the conflict. Now, apply the discipline of action. Your inner work of pausing and questioning your impressions has already provided you with mental clarity. You see the provocation not as a personal attack to be avenged, but as a communication, however flawed, emerging from another person's own lack of clarity. From this calm center, your action can be chosen, not compelled. You can choose to respond with a calm, reasoned question, seeking to understand their underlying concern. This does not mean you agree with them, but that you engage with the substance of the issue rather than the emotional noise surrounding it. Your action becomes a purposeful step toward resolution, not merely an impulsive release of your own frustration. For tomorrow, plan one small, conscious action. It does not need to be grand. It could be the choice to listen fully without interrupting a family member, or to complete a task with meticulous care simply because it is the right way to do it. Consciously choose this action not for its convenience or immediate reward, but because it aligns with the virtue of patience or integrity. This is how clear judgment manifests as purposeful action, building a life where your inner peace is reflected in every outward deed. Mental clutter often grows from an endless list of wants. We desire praise, a certain lifestyle, or outcomes that rest entirely in the hands of others, and each of these desires adds another layer of noise to our thinking. The Stoic path to clarity involves a gentle shift, not toward having less, but toward wanting less of what we cannot command. This is the art of contentment, a state where your mind is no longer pulled in a dozen directions by external lures. The philosopher Epictetus, who understood both humble means and philosophical riches, framed it with quiet simplicity. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, he taught, but in having few wants. He was pointing to a profound truth, that poverty and wealth are not just states of your bank account, but quiet judgments in your mind about what you truly need to be at peace. When you feel that you need very little to be content, you possess a great inner wealth that circumstance cannot easily touch. This simplicity of desire directly translates to a quieter, more focused mind. A mind free from the constant hum of wanting is a mind with the space for clear judgment. Consider the internal world of two people. One spends their evening crafting a social media post, their attention fixed on the incoming likes and comments. Each notification delivers a small thrill, each silence a flicker of uncertainty. Their mental state is changeable, entirely dependent on the shifting opinions of an unseen audience. Now think of someone who has practiced this stoic contentment. They may share something of value, but their primary focus is on the integrity of the act itself, on expressing their character with honesty. Their peace is not tied to the digital response. They are content in knowing they acted according to their principles, and this self-approval creates a steady, tranquil mind capable of clear thought without the static of external validation. The first person's judgment is clouded by a deep need for approval, while the second's remains clear because their goal was entirely within their own control. Take a quiet moment to reflect on your own mental landscape. Can you identify 3 things you deeply desire that lie almost completely outside your control? Perhaps it is a specific promotion, the steady approval of a particular person, or a certain number in your savings account. Now, gently observe the mental energy you spend on these desires. How much time is devoted to mental rehearsals, to concern, to planning for an outcome you cannot guarantee? This is the cognitive cost of wanting what you do not command. Simply noticing this expenditure is the first step toward reclaiming that energy and redirecting it toward what you can truly influence, your own actions and your own character. When you loosen your grip on these external demands, you might find that the clarity you have been seeking was always there, waiting quietly beneath the noise. Resilience is not a wall that blocks hardship, but a lens that clarifies it. The Stoic mind treats every obstacle as a training ground for judgment, a chance to practice seeing the path forward where others only see a closed road. This is the heart of the obstacle, is the way philosophy, where your perception of a barrier becomes the very thing that moves you forward. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, guiding an empire through constant tension and personal transition, wrote these powerful words in his private journal. The impediment to action advances action, he noted. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not a poetic metaphor, but a practical cognitive tool. A roadblock does not halt your journey, it simply redefines the route. Your judgment, when refined by this principle, stops categorizing setbacks as pure misfortune and begins to decode them for their hidden utility. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, whose laboratory was once consumed by a significant fire. The immediate, raw judgment would label this a total loss, a difficult close to years of work. But Edison's reported response reflects a stoic recalibration of judgment. He allegedly told his son, "There is great value in this situation. All our mistakes are cleared away. Thank goodness we can start anew." He did not deny the reality of what happened, but his judgment focused on what the event revealed, an unexpected opening and a chance for a purer, more focused beginning. The obstacle of the fire advanced his action by clearing away the old and making space for the new. His resilience was not a denial of the difficulty, but a direct result of a judgment that saw potential embedded within the problem. Now bring this to a challenge you are facing in your own life. It might be a professional redirection, a health consideration, or a personal tension. For a moment, set aside the story that this is merely a difficult moment. Ask yourself, if this obstacle is the way, what is it teaching me? Where is it encouraging me to grow stronger, more creative, or more compassionate? How can this very situation become the foundation for my next step? Reframing your judgment in this way does not make the challenge disappear, but it transforms you from someone who is enduring a trial into someone who is actively using it. Your resilience becomes a natural result of your clarified perspective, an unshakable strength built one wise judgment at a time. Our most challenging tests of judgment rarely happen in solitude. They unfold in our conversations and connections with others. The very principles that bring inner clarity become your most valuable tools for navigating the complex world of relationships. By applying Stoic cognitive discipline to your social life, you learn to respond to people with wisdom rather than react from raw emotion. This transforms conflict into understanding and builds connections on a foundation of mutual respect. The core practices you have been exploring, the dichotomy of control, objective representation, and the suspension of judgment, are not just for private contemplation. They are designed for the messy, unpredictable theater of human interaction. Epictetus offered a powerful insight for these moments. Remember, he wrote that it is not the person who insults or attacks you who harms you, but your view that these people are harming you. The difficulty exists only in your judgment of the event. When you fully grasp this, you take back the power over your own emotional state in any relationship. Consider a common family disagreement. A relative makes a pointed comment about a life choice you have made. The raw, initial impression screams with judgment, "They do not respect me." This interpretation instantly triggers a defensive reaction. You feel hurt and angry, and the conversation escalates into a heated argument where both people feel misunderstood. Now apply the Stoic toolkit first. Invoke the dichotomy of control. You cannot control your relatives' opinions or their words. That is their domain. Your complete control lies in your own response, in the judgment you form about their comment. Next, use objective representation. Strip away the emotionally charged story. The bare fact is, a person expressed a verbal opinion that differs from my own. That is the neutral event. Finally, suspend your final judgment about their intent. Instead of assenting to the thought that they meant to cause difficulty, you consider other possibilities. Perhaps they are speaking from a place of genuine, if clumsy, concern. Maybe their comment reflects their own fears or experiences, not a true assessment of you. From this calm, clarified space, your response can change entirely. Instead of retaliating, you might ask a gentle, curious question. What makes you see it that way? This de-escalates the conflict instantly. It opens a door to dialogue instead of slamming it shut. You address the issue without letting it damage the relationship or your own peace of mind. You are no longer a puppet whose strings are pulled by another person's words. Think of one relationship in your own life that feels strained or occasionally difficult. It could be with a partner, a friend, or a colleague. Now, consider how you might approach your next interaction with them if you consciously applied these principles. What if you focused only on your own responses, saw their words in their plainest form, and withheld the final judgment about their character? How might that small shift in your cognitive discipline begin to change the dynamic between you? Is your good mood dependent on things going your way? This question strikes at a hidden vulnerability in our pursuit of happiness. We often celebrate fortunate events as pure victories, believing they have finally set our lives on the right track. Yet the Stoics warn that this very celebration can be a subtle trap for the undisciplined mind. They advise applying the same thoughtful awareness to prosperity that we use for hardship. A sudden windfall, a streak of easy success, these are not permanent changes to your reality but temporary conditions, as fleeting and unreliable as their opposites. Judging these positive events with calm perspective prevents a different kind of cloudiness, the fog of complacency that can soften your judgment and set you up for a harder fall later. Seneca offered a clear reminder of this dynamic, writing that fortune is like a beautiful but fickle guest. She stays with no one. He cautions against the intoxication of good luck, noting that when we are elated by prosperity, we are often most vulnerable to being deceived by a false sense of security. The goal is not to reject joy, but to experience it without the dangerous assumption that its cause will last forever. This balanced perspective is the anchor that keeps your mind steady through every season of life. Consider the experience of a sudden, unexpected promotion. The initial rush is powerful, a flood of validation and excitement. The undisciplined mind might instantly weave a new identity around this title, attaching its sense of worth to the new role, the higher salary, and the increased respect. It begins to see this specific circumstance as a necessary condition for its happiness. Now observe the Stoic approach. The individual welcomes the promotion and performs the new duties with excellence, finding genuine satisfaction in the work itself. Yet internally, they hold the situation lightly. They recognize it as a preferred indifferent, a development that is welcome but does not fundamentally alter their core value or capacity for virtue. They understand that corporate structures change, markets shift, and this position could be reshaped or removed by forces entirely beyond their control. By not fusing their identity to the role, they protect their peace. If the title or the perks were to change later, their judgment remains clear and their sense of self remains intact. They enjoyed the wave while it lasted, but they never mistook it for the solid ground beneath their feet. Think back to a recent stroke of good luck you experienced, perhaps a positive surprise or a goal achieved more easily than expected. How much of your subsequent happiness and sense of stability became tied to that single event? Notice how that attachment, however pleasant it felt at the time, also created a quiet point of future vulnerability. Releasing that grip does not diminish the joy of the moment. It simply frees your clarity from dependence on the unpredictable tides of fortune. The world around us hums with a constant stream of information, yet true clarity often arrives in the quiet spaces between. Intentional silence is a foundational, yet often overlooked, tool in the Stoic toolkit for refining personal judgment. By deliberately quieting the external world, we turn down the volume on distraction and turn up the dial on our own inner voice, the one that speaks with reason rather than reaction. This practice creates a sanctuary where our initial impressions can be observed before we give them our assent, allowing for decisions born of reflection, not reflex. The value of silence was recognized long before the Stoics, with the Pythagorean school requiring initiates to observe periods of quiet to cultivate self-mastery. This tradition was absorbed into Stoic practice as a form of mental hygiene, a daily cleansing of the noise that clouds our perception. It is in this stillness that we can truly examine the events of the previous day, untangle our judgments, and reinforce our principles without the interference of outside opinions. A simple way to integrate this is to claim just 5 minutes each morning before you reach for your phone or begin your day. Sit in a comfortable silence, perhaps with a warm drink, and simply observe the flow of your thoughts. Do not try to stop them or judge them, just let them pass like clouds in a vast sky. This brief daily practice trains your mind to find its center amidst chaos, strengthening your capacity for clear judgment when you need it most. Your challenge is to find 5 minutes of complete silence today. It could be in your car before you go inside or on a park bench during a break. Just sit and listen to the quiet, observing your inner world without any agenda. Notice how this small island of stillness changes the texture of your thoughts and the clarity of your perspective for the hours that follow. Your own final moment is not a distant event but a present truth that gives weight to your every choice. The Stoic practice of Memento Mori, the remembrance of our own finite time, might seem like a serious meditation, yet its purpose is profoundly clarifying. This is not a fixation on an ending, but a tool for sharpening your judgment to its finest point. By holding the reality of your limited days in mind, you instinctively filter out the trivial noise that so often clouds your perspective. Petty grievances, the desperate need for external approval, the fear of minor social slights, all of these lose their power when viewed through this lens. What remains is a quiet, urgent focus on what is genuinely meaningful. Marcus Aurelius guided himself with this very thought, writing, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. He was not fostering anxiety, but instilling a powerful criterion for judgment. Is this action, this worry, this use of my time worthy of what could be my final act? This question cuts through hesitation and procrastination, creating a mental clarity born of stark priority. Imagine facing a stressful work deadline. Under normal circumstances, the mind might be cluttered with concerns about perfection, about how your peers will perceive the result, about the potential for minor criticism. Now apply the Memento Mori perspective. If this were the last project you ever completed, what would truly matter? The obsession with perfect formatting dissolves, and in its place rises a clear focus on the core idea, on expressing your contribution with integrity and purpose. The judgment shifts from how can I avoid looking bad to how can I make this final effort count. The same principle transforms a heated family conversation. The urge to win, to be right, to prove a point feels incredibly important in the heat of the moment. But if this exchange were potentially your last with this person, what would you choose to say? The judgment instantly reframes. The desire to be right is replaced by the deeper need for connection and understanding. You would speak with more patience, listen with more generosity, and prioritize the relationship over the temporary victory of your point. Your clarity in that moment would be absolute because you are no longer judging the situation by the standards of your ego, but by the standards of a life well lived. Take a quiet breath and consider this. If you were to learn that you had 1 week of conscious, capable life remaining, what would you immediately stop doing? What single activity or connection would rise to the top of your attention, pushing aside all the minor concerns that typically fill your days? The answer that arises in that quiet space is a map to your own clarified judgment, a guide to what you truly value when everything non-essential is stripped away. Your personal concerns exist within a vast, interconnected human community. The Stoics championed an idea known as cosmopolitanism, the profound sense of being a citizen of the entire world. This is not about travel or politics, but a deliberate shift in your cognitive perspective, a choice to see your life as a single thread woven into a magnificent global tapestry. When you judge from this wider vantage point, your personal anxieties and self-focused impulses begin to shrink to their true size, and your decisions naturally align with a greater common good. Marcus Aurelius, governing a vast empire, constantly returned to this thought to guide his judgment. The poet Apollonius often said, he wrote, "What is the use of a philosophy that does not cure the sick mind?" And then he added, "What is the use of a leader who does not make his people content?" This ruler understood that his judgment was not for his benefit alone, but for the welfare of a shared human city. He saw his role as a service to the whole, a perspective that instantly clarified which choices were wise and which were merely self-serving. To judge as a citizen of the world is to realize that your well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others. This cognitive shift moves you from a mindset of isolation to one of connection, where your personal good and the common good become two sides of the same coin. Consider a modern environmental concern, like the decision to reduce your personal consumption. From a narrow, self-focused perspective, this might feel like a sacrifice, an inconvenient limitation on your lifestyle. Your judgment might be clouded by thoughts of what you are giving up. Now apply the cosmopolitan lens. See yourself not just as an individual consumer, but as a citizen of a planet shared with billions of others and with generations yet to come. Your choice to consume less is no longer a personal deprivation, but a positive contribution to the health of your shared home. Your judgment clears, and the action feels purposeful and aligned, a small but meaningful service to your global community. The same principle works on a local scale. A neighborhood conversation about a shared resource, like a common area, can sometimes become a disagreement about individual preferences. Each person may judge the situation only from their own need for quiet or their own desire for social space, but a citizen of the world first sees the community itself. Their judgment expands to ask, what solution would create the most harmony for all of us who share this place? This broader question leads to more creative, cooperative solutions than a simple clash of views ever could. Your personal goals do not need to be abandoned, but they can be reframed. Take a moment and bring to mind one of your own aspirations. Now, gently ask yourself, how could pursuing this goal also create a ripple of benefit for my immediate community, or even for the wider world? Aligning your personal drive with a broader contribution does not dilute your ambition. It deepens its meaning and clarifies the path forward with a profound sense of shared purpose. A cluttered life inevitably feeds a cluttered mind. Every unnecessary possession, every half-hearted commitment, and every stream of trivial information demands a small piece of your attention, fragmenting your focus and clouding your judgment. Stoic minimalism is the conscious practice of applying cognitive discipline to your external world, creating an environment that supports inner clarity rather than sabotaging it. This is not about deprivation, but about intentional curation, choosing to surround yourself only with what serves your purpose and your peace. The Roman philosopher Seneca saw the profound burden of excess with remarkable clarity. It is not the person who has too little, he wrote, but the person who craves more that is poor. He observed that wealth amassed through hard work becomes a kind of confinement, as you must then guard it, manage it, and worry over its loss. Your possessions begin to own you, occupying valuable mental space that could be devoted to clear thinking and meaningful pursuits. The goal is to lighten your load so your mind is free to focus on what truly matters. Consider the modern equivalent of Seneca's warning, the endless scroll of digital consumption. Your phone offers a constant stream of information, opinions, and entertainment, each notification a potential distraction pulling you away from the present moment. A Stoic review of this digital space is a powerful first step. Open the applications you use most and ask a simple, disciplined question about each one. Does this tool serve my purpose, or does it primarily scatter my attention? You might find that certain feeds or channels fill your mind with comparison or anxiety without offering any real value. Unfollowing them is not an act of ignorance, but an act of cognitive care. It is choosing to protect your mental clarity from a steady flow of noise. The same principle applies to your physical surroundings. Look around your living space. Each object you own requires some amount of your energy to maintain, clean, store, or even just look at. A Stoic review here asks, does this item serve a necessary function or bring me genuine, consistent value aligned with my principles? If not, its presence is a quiet tax on your attention. Letting it go is not a loss, but a liberation of mental space. This extends to your calendar as well. Every social obligation or commitment that does not align with your core values becomes a source of low-grade mental friction, a future event you must subconsciously prepare for or manage. Pruning these commitments is like tending a garden, allowing the plants you truly care about to thrive. Identify one commitment in your life that feels more like a drain than a contribution. It could be a recurring meeting, a social circle, or a personal project that has lost its meaning. What would happen if you respectfully stepped away? The space that opens up is not empty. It is filled with potential for more focused, intentional action and the quiet needed for clear judgment to emerge. Gratitude is a quiet rebellion against the mind's tendency to focus on what is missing. The Stoics did not see it as a fleeting emotion or a polite social gesture, but as a rigorous cognitive discipline, a deliberate judgment that everything we encounter is a gift for our use and our growth. This practice transforms your baseline outlook from one of lack to one of profound sufficiency. It is the ultimate reframing of your circumstances, where even hardship is met not with resistance, but with a recognition of its potential to strengthen your character. Your mind, when trained in this judgment, stops scanning the world for deficits and begins to see the abundance already present. Marcus Aurelius began his days by methodically listing the things he was grateful for, a practice that set the tone for his entire judgment. His list was strikingly inclusive. He expressed thanks for the virtues of his family, for his health, and then, crucially, he extended his gratitude to the difficult people and the obstacles he would likely face. He judged them as necessary teachers, writing, "The people who bother you, who stand in your way, they too have slept little and risen early, and they too are doing what they believe is right according to their own understanding." This is the core of the Stoic shift. You are not grateful for the difficulty itself, but for the opportunity it provides, the chance to practice patience, to cultivate understanding, to strengthen your resolve. The event remains the same, but your judgment of its value is completely transformed, and with it, your entire mental state. Consider the everyday frustration of a household appliance breaking down. The immediate, untrained judgment might be one of pure inconvenience, a problem that costs time and money. This perspective fills the mind with irritation and a sense of things being unfair. Now apply the Stoic discipline of gratitude. You consciously pause and reframe the situation. You judge it differently. You can be grateful for the many years the appliance served you reliably. You can find gratitude for the resources, however stretched, that allow you to address the repair. You might even feel a flicker of thanks for the minor challenge itself, which forces a pause in your routine and perhaps invites a simpler way of doing things for a short while. The factual event is unchanged, but your cognitive and emotional experience of it has shifted from one of lack to one of resourcefulness and perspective. This single act of re-judging your day can drain the tension from a situation and restore a sense of agency and calm. For the next 24 hours, make it a quiet experiment. Take a moment to write down 3 specific things you can practice being stoically grateful for. They do not need to be grand. The first could be a simple pleasure like the warmth of sunlight. The second could be a personal strength you possess, like your capacity to learn. For the third, consciously choose a minor inconvenience or a person who sometimes challenges you, and write down one reason you can be grateful for the opportunity they present for your own growth. This small act of writing solidifies the judgment, training your mind to default to a lens of gratitude, and in doing so, it builds an unshakable foundation for contentment. How much of your mental energy is spent worrying about what others think? This quiet preoccupation can become a constant drain, a background hum of concern that distorts our choices and clouds our inner peace. Stoic cognitive discipline offers a direct path to liberation from this weight. By returning our focus to the one territory we truly command, we must revisit the core dichotomy of control, recognizing that the opinions, praise, and criticism of other people reside firmly in the category of externals. These are not things we can ever govern, and to base our self-worth on them is to build our home on shifting sand. The Stoic teacher Epictetus offered a brilliantly sharp insight into this dynamic. He asked, "Is it not strange that we should accept the praise of those we ourselves would not praise?" This simple question cuts to the heart of the matter. If you would not necessarily value the judgment of another person in all areas of their own life, why would you grant their opinion ultimate power over your own state of mind? Their view is a reflection of their own experiences, biases, and limitations, not an objective verdict on your value. When you internalize this, the concern over judgment begins to lose its grip. Consider the modern ritual of posting on social media. The typical, untrained approach is to craft a post and then wait, the mind subtly tethered to the incoming notifications. Each like delivers a small sense of connection, while silence can feel like a quiet absence. Your mental clarity for the next hour may be entirely influenced by the digital reactions of near strangers. Now apply the Stoic shift. Before you share, you perform a quick cognitive check. Your only true domain is the act of posting itself. You can control the virtue of your content. Is it honest? Is it kind? Is it something you believe has value? The reactions, the likes, the shares, these are all externals, entirely in the hands of others. Your success is not measured by the engagement metric, but by the integrity of your own action. You post because you judged it the right thing to do, and then you mentally release the outcome. This does not mean you become indifferent to community, but that you engage from a place of stable self-approval rather than a search for external validation. Your peace remains intact regardless of the digital response. Your challenge is to choose one small action tomorrow that you believe is genuinely right, and to perform it without any concern for whether others will approve. It could be wearing an outfit you love but feel is too bold, voicing a thoughtful counter-opinion in a meeting, or simply declining an invitation to protect your own energy. Carry out the action for its own sake, focusing only on the virtue of the act itself, your courage, your honesty, your self-care. Then, observe the quiet sense of freedom that arises when your worth is no longer up for discussion. True clarity in one area of life requires unwavering integrity in all the others. The Stoics taught that the four cardinal virtues are not separate skills, but a single, unified strength of character. Wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance are intertwined, each one supporting and completing the others. You cannot perfectly possess one without the others, because a failure in any single virtue will inevitably cloud your judgment across the board. A lapse in courage, for instance, can prevent you from acting on the wisdom you possess. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus explained that virtue is like a single body with many parts, each one essential for the whole to function. If one part is weakened or missing, the entire system is compromised. Your judgment is that system in action. Imagine facing a complex ethical situation at work. You discover a colleague is taking credit for your work on a shared project. Wisdom helps you correctly perceive the situation and understand the long-term consequences of different responses. Justice calls you to seek a fair resolution that respects your contribution and the truth, but without courage, your wisdom and justice remain trapped as mere thoughts. The concern about confrontation or social tension might cause you to stay silent, a judgment clouded by the lack of bravery. And what if your decision is also influenced by intemperance, perhaps a wish for immediate peace at any cost? This lack of self-control could lead you to accept an unfair outcome simply to avoid momentary discomfort, further distorting the just path. All four virtues must work in concert to arrive at the clearest, most aligned judgment. The wisdom to see the truth, the courage to act upon it, the justice to guide your action fairly, and the temperance to manage your own desires and fears. They are the four pillars of a single, unshakable mind. Think back to a past decision you now consider a misstep. It does not need to be a large one. As you reflect on that moment, can you identify which virtue was most lacking in your judgment? Was it a failure of wisdom where you did not see the full picture? A lack of courage where you knew the right path but hesitated? An absence of justice where your own interest overshadowed fairness? Or a shortfall in temperance where a passing impulse overruled your better judgment? Seeing this interplay is how you begin to strengthen the entire foundation of your character, ensuring that your future choices are built on a clarity that holds fast, no matter the challenge. Is the goal to feel good or to be good and think clearly? This question reveals the fundamental divide between the ancient Stoic path and much of modern self-help. While contemporary approaches often focus on achieving external goals or cultivating a constant state of positive emotion, Stoicism offers something far more durable, an internal operating system for the mind itself. The Stoics sought a tranquility that was rooted in virtue and clear judgment, not in the fleeting pleasure of a desired outcome. As Seneca wisely noted, the happy life is one that is in harmony with its own nature, not one that is dependent on the applause of the crowd or the winds of fortune. This is not a system of motivation hacks, but a deep retraining of your cognitive habits. Consider the starkly different responses to a professional setback. A purely positive thinking model might encourage you to immediately affirm your success, to visualize a brighter future, and to banish any negative thoughts. While this can provide a temporary emotional lift, it often skips a crucial step, the clear-eyed examination of what actually happened and why. The Stoic approach is fundamentally different. When faced with difficulty, the first move is not to replace a bad feeling with a good one, but to pause and examine the judgment that led to your distress. You would ask, what story did I tell myself about this event that caused my frustration? Was my expectation reasonable? What part of this outcome was truly within my influence and what part was not? This process is not about self-criticism, but about gathering insight. It transforms the experience from a personal verdict into a practical lesson in cause and effect. You learn from what occurred, adjust your perspective and your methods, and then move forward with a clearer, more resilient understanding. The goal is not to simply feel better in the moment, but to build a mind that cannot be so easily unsettled by external events in the first place. Take a quiet moment to reflect on your own current methods for maintaining well-being. Do they focus primarily on changing your external circumstances, on arranging the world to be more pleasing to you? Or do they focus on the more challenging, yet more empowering, work of refining your own judgments about the world, regardless of how it appears? The answer points toward whether you are seeking a temporary mood or a lasting clarity. Philosophy finds its true power not in a lecture hall but in the quiet of your morning, the pressure of your workday, and the stillness of your evening. A daily Stoic routine weaves cognitive discipline into the fabric of your life, transforming abstract principles into lived clarity. Imagine a simple, sustainable flow that anchors your day. It begins in the morning with a brief meditation on your intentions. Before the world makes its demands, you take 5 minutes to sit quietly. You might read a single line from Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus. Then ask yourself a simple question, not what do I need to accomplish today, but how do I wish to show up? Set a virtue-based intention, such as I will meet my tasks with patience or I will listen with genuine focus. This is not about planning your schedule, but about preparing your mind. As Seneca observed, consistent practice in small things is what forges an invincible character. It is the daily drip of water that eventually wears away stone. Throughout your day, you build in small pauses for objective representation. When a stressful email arrives or a difficult conversation begins, you take one conscious breath. In that moment, you strip the event down to its bare facts, removing the dramatic story your mind wants to tell. This midday practice prevents small sparks from becoming mental wildfires. Then, in the evening, a brief journal review closes the loop. You look back not to dwell on events, but to examine your judgments. Where did I react from impulse instead of principle? Where did I see the obstacle as the way? This is not self-criticism, it is cognitive hygiene, clearing away the mental clutter of the day. For a practical start, commit to just a 5-minute morning ritual. Find a quiet spot with a warm drink. Read one Stoic sentence, perhaps Marcus Aurelius, reminding you that the universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Then, for the remaining minutes, simply hold your chosen virtue in mind, like courage or justice, and visualize yourself carrying it through your upcoming interactions. This small, consistent investment pays compound interest in mental clarity. Your challenge is to select one new practice from this journey, whether it is the morning intention, the midday pause, or the evening review, and commit to it for the next 7 days. Do not seek perfection, simply notice the subtle shift in your inner landscape as you consciously refine your judgment, one day at a time. Stoic cognitive discipline is a living system for refining your judgment and securing a clarity that endures long after the initial inspiration fades. These are not abstract ideas but practical tools for the mind. The fundamental distinction between what is within your control and what is not. The practice of seeing events in their plain reality through objective representation, and the profound embrace of your own path with Amor Fati. These principles form a resilient framework for a quieter, more deliberate inner world. The transformation they offer is captured perfectly in the words of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. This strength is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your peace is built on an unshakable internal foundation, not on the shifting sands of circumstance. This journey does not end with understanding, it begins there. The true work unfolds in the countless small moments of your daily life, in the pause before you react, in the gentle reframing of a difficulty, in the conscious choice to focus on your own actions. It is a lifelong practice of returning to these principles again and again, allowing them to reshape your automatic responses over time. We would love to hear from you in the comments below. Which Stoic principle do you find most challenging to apply, or which one has already brought a new sense of clarity to your life? Sharing our experiences creates a community of learning, reminding each of us that we are not alone in the pursuit of a wiser, more peaceful